systematic review methods webinar series. So as we always say, the series is run by Cochrane South Africa's training working group, where really we provide training and support in evidence-based healthcare methods for researchers and postgraduate students and others. So yeah, today I have the great pleasure of welcoming Rachel Klabunde. I hope I got that right, Rachel Klabunde. Rachel is Cochrane's support and training officer, and has been with Cochrane since 2019. She holds a Master's of Science in Public Health and is passionate about evidence-based healthcare and enjoys supporting Cochrane author staff and volunteers from around the world. She is currently with the Cochrane Executive, but also based in Chile. So she is going to be talking to us today about how you go about registering a Cochrane review. So as Amir was saying, at Cochrane South Africa, we get such a lot of requests from people of how do we go about and navigate this process. So we are very lucky today to have Rachel, who's going to really share with us the kind of where, why, how, and so forth of how we go about publishing a Cochrane review. So just before I hand over to Rachel, just a few housekeeping issues. Firstly, if you all wouldn't mind just keeping yourselves on mute during the presentation, and please feel free to type in the chat any questions that come to mind. We'll have the presentation, and then at the end we'll have time for questions and comments, where you can at that point also write in the chat or raise your hand. And just finally, we will be recording the session, so please be aware of this, and we'll use the recording. It will be available afterwards on Cochrane South Africa's website. So I think without any further ado, Rachel, thank you. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning if you're in my part of the world. I'm so pleased to be here and really appreciate the invitation to talk about the process that we have in Cochrane for registering Cochrane Reviews. As Sarah mentioned, I am the support and training officer with Cochrane. I've been with the support team since 2019. And have held other various roles and had hats on in Cochrane. So just to talk about kind of some different things we'll talk about in the presentation today. We'll talk about where you can publish with Cochrane and why you might want to, considerations that you will want to take into account for new systematic reviews or for updates. The Cochrane database of systematic reviews is quite unique in that we try to keep our reviews up to date, so review updates are common as well. We'll talk about what you want to think about when forming an author team for your review, preparing and submitting your proposal to Cochrane, the process for consideration of these proposals and a decision, and then should your proposal be accepted, next steps after that. We'll have plenty of time at the end of the presentation for questions, so please do feel free to type them into the chat if you'd like as we go along, or keep them in mind, and then when we have questions, you're welcome to raise your hand and unmute and ask those questions as well. So where can you publish with Cochrane? Probably the most well-known for all of you is the Cochrane Library, which is the home of our Cochrane database of systematic reviews. The Cochrane Library publishes systematic reviews and would be the ideal place for you to publish if you have not yet begun to work on your research. And if you're willing to develop your systematic review using Cochrane processes, following kind of our methodological standards and adhering to all of our main policies. But we also have another journal, an open access journal that has been around for a bit called Cochrane Evidence Synthesis and Methods. As I mentioned, this is an open access publication that is a good place for you to submit your work to for work related to evidence synthesis that isn't a formal Cochrane systematic review. So, for example, a scoping review, you may wish to submit their articles about new methods and things like this. And also, if you have submissions or manuscripts, excuse me, that are ready for submission now, and you don't want to wait kind of for the Cochrane processes to development, you can also submit to Cochrane Evidence Synthesis and Methods Journal. So for the purpose of the rest of this presentation, I'll be talking about the process for registering Cochrane protocols and new review updates that will be published on the Cochrane Library. So why would you like to publish with Cochrane? We are, as you may know, a leader in systematic reviews of health evidence. Cochrane Reviews are considered kind of the gold standard in terms of quality of systematic reviews of health evidence. And our work has impact on policies as well as on patients. So over the past 5 years, the majority of new WHO guidelines have been informed in some way by Cochrane Reviews. Our evidence is also used by specialist medical associations around the world, by clinicians, by patients and the public to make shared decisions about their healthcare. There are also governments around the world who enable their populations to access Cochrane Reviews for free via national provisions. So your work will have a large impact if published on the Cochrane Library. Additionally, your work on a Cochrane Review could be supported by Cochrane groups and contributors. So if you're associated with a Cochrane group, perhaps most likely with Cochrane South Africa or other members of the Cochrane Africa Network, or similarly, you might be working with a review group, a thematic group, or an evidence synthesis unit, and you could receive support from those groups while you are developing your review. You also might receive help from, for example, the Cochrane Crowd, which is our kind of crowdsourcing research platform, via Screen for Me that could help you screen records that might be eligible for inclusion in your review. So these are just some ways that you could be supported by the Cochrane community while you're developing your review. There are also free training resources and support available for you once you are registered with a title with Cochrane. So you could receive free access to Cochrane Interactive Learning, which is our online course about that takes you through the steps of producing a systematic review of an intervention. You also will have access and need to work in RevMan, which is our own review management software. And we also have a library of training resources and methods that are available to registered Cochrane authors. You will be able to have free open access publication of your review. So Gold open access is available for free for all protocols on the Cochrane Library, and green open access is available free of cost on the Cochrane Library. And there's also dissemination support centrally for your review. So your abstract or plain language summary could be translated into up to 20 languages for use by populations all around the world that need access to these parts of the review in other languages that aren't English. And finally, on publication, you will receive Cochrane membership, and this is a recognition of your contribution to evidence-based medicine. You can have a membership certificate, as well as receive discounts on training and software with Cochrane. And the corresponding author of Cochrane Protocols and Reviews receive free access to the Cochrane Library for 3 years after publication. So just some of the benefits of publishing with Cochrane. So important considerations for you when you're thinking about developing a new review or proposing a new review for development with Cochrane. The central and most important thing is your research question. So research questions should be designed to be answerable. They should fill gaps in the knowledge. So we really want prospective authors to do some searching around before they propose their review to ensure that there's no similar review answering the same question on the Cochrane Library, but also that there aren't other systematic reviews that have very recently been published elsewhere on the same topic. So that's important. We want your review question to address issues that are important to stakeholders. So ensuring that your question will support clinical practice and policy, thinking about how your proposed review topic would help meet the needs of patients with this condition or looking at this intervention, how health professionals might use the results of your review in their clinical practice, and also for policymakers, if you're asking a review question that's relevant for guideline development, for example, or for other development of policy. For more details and to look into this a bit more, there's the finer criteria that we use to evaluate review questions, ensuring that they are feasible, interesting, given the context of the topic being explored, that they're novel, as I mentioned, filling gaps in the knowledge, and aren't repeating work that has been done before, that their questions represent an ethical question, and that they are relevant. So this is the finer criteria in case you want to look into that more. Your review question will determine the scope of your review. So one common pitfall that our proposal manager and the editors that review these proposals see is that review questions may be too broad. And so we're really looking for a narrow and focused question that will help stop kind of scope creep, we say, which is where kind of the scope of your review becomes too broad to be feasibly answered in one systematic review. You'll also want to consider the types of studies that are available in the literature for inclusion in your review, and then define your PICO inclusion criteria, which, in case you're not aware, PICO in Cochrane refers to population, intervention, comparison, and outcome. So you will be defining all of these things when considering your proposal for your review topic. So to the point that I mentioned of making future reviews relevant for stakeholders, Cochrane really appreciates review proposals that address research priorities that have been named in our scientific strategy, which is kind of the poster version of that is available here on this slide, building a healthier future. So the 4 main research priorities that we've identified as being really vital for the future in global health, but also for Cochrane, is related to maternal, newborn, and child health, to answering questions related to managing multiple chronic conditions, as we know is a priority with health at the moment, infectious diseases and pandemics. We, of course, following the COVID pandemic, additional kind of attention is being paid, and it's important to focus on preparedness and management of infectious diseases and potential future pandemics. And then climate change and sustainability is an important research area of priority for Cochrane going forward. So you can find a lot more information about kind of more in depth about these research priorities for Cochrane on our website, cochrane.org, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention them here. It is important to note these, of course, aren't the only topic areas that will be considered for new reviews, but these are kind of the top priority research areas that we have in Cochrane at the moment. So as I mentioned, the Cochrane Library and Cochrane Database of Systematic Reviews is quite unique in the world of research in that we seek to keep high priority reviews updated through publishing updates to previously published reviews on the library. Earlier in 2025, we launched a decision framework for updating of Cochrane Reviews. That is linked on this slide, and I've shared this PDF of the slides so that everyone attending can have access to all of these links that I'm sharing. So don't worry, you'll get those later. But there are several considerations that you should think about when you're deciding if you've previously published a review with Cochrane, whether it would be relevant to propose and complete an update of your review. So some of the key elements that you'll want to keep in mind if you're considering an update for a previous review is, for example, the body of supporting evidence. If there is new research that has been published that's relevant to the intervention or review topic that you have published before, that could change or support the conclusions of your previously published review. This is a big one to note. We see this a lot with reviews that are published when there's still research ongoing. So if there's big randomized controlled trials, for example, of your intervention, when a review is published, you may seek to update soon to incorporate those trials. You'll want to consider, if you're proposing an update, the continued relevance of the review question. So is the intervention that you are researching still used in clinical practice, for example, or in policy in your country? Making sure that the review question continues to be relevant for the context. Also, you'll want to think about whether you would want to include new types of evidence or study designs in your review criteria, and also any other changes to methods with an update. We see this with kind of much older reviews that are updated. Quite a long time ago, we didn't have summary of findings tables in all Cochrane reviews, so incorporating that. If you would want to update the methods, for example, to analyze risk of bias in your review, and things like that. So any other methodological changes that would be updated. So that decision framework includes those and other elements for you to consider about whether an update is relevant to undertake. Whether you're working on a new review or an update, those that are on the call that have produced a review know that Cochrane Reviews can take a lot of time to produce, and it is quite a bit of work to complete a review. We know that. This work becomes a lot more feasible when you share the work across an author team that has really varied strengths and areas of expertise. So we will need, all Cochrane Reviews must be authored by at least 2 authors, but of course we do recommend potentially including more members of the author team. Really essential members for a proposed review or update is a clinician or someone with expert knowledge in the topic that you're proposing. This will ensure, of course, that their expertise can be brought to bear across the review production process, and knowing what considerations are relevant for a given topic to include in a review. We also really recommend, if possible, including an information specialist in your author team, someone with expertise for developing your search strategy for your protocol, as well as running searches of various databases for your review. At times, in some Cochrane groups have information specialists who are available kind of to help out with reviews, but if at all possible, we would highly recommend including someone with this knowledge in your author team. And then you can also add value to your author team with inclusion of additional members, people with expertise in methodology, statisticians, people, if at all possible, to include someone who has produced a Cochrane review in the past. I think that's a really big bonus. And then within Cochrane, we highly recommend, if you can, including someone with lived experience of the condition or intervention that you are researching in your review, because it adds a really kind of deep and unique view to ensuring that your review is relevant to these members that are most affected by or using the intervention that you're looking at. And then, of course, the corresponding author of a Cochrane review is kind of the main person responsible for keeping the review author team on track, keeping the review moving forward, ensuring that your review author team meets our policies on authorship, but also our conflict of interest policy. This is something that is quite unique to Cochrane. We have quite a strict conflict of interest policy regarding members of author teams of our reviews. So please do check that out on our website and ensure that then when forming an author team, your relevant team members are free from conflicts of interest related to the topic of your review. And of course, the corresponding author is responsible for communicating with us in the central team and with the Cochrane group that may be supporting you to be the main point of contact for everything related to your review. If after that you're thinking, oh gosh, I have 1 or 2 people, but I don't know about how I might form a team with other members, there's a few resources available for you within Cochrane. So you may wish to look for co-authors or publish kind of a notice about looking for co-authors on Cochrane Engage, which is our volunteer hub. I've included the link here. We have kind of tasks from author teams and editors across Cochrane that are posted there for volunteering, and you can also browse the profiles of researchers who have made their profiles public on Cochrane Engage and message them via the platform to find out about finding other co-authors that are relevant for your author team. You also might want to reach out to your Cochrane groups in your area. So of course, Cochrane South Africa, I've included the email address there, or the wider Cochrane African Network to find collaborators to join your author team, or to receive recommendations about where you might look for other members of the author team. But you also may wish to contact other Cochrane groups. That last bullet is also a link that you can have when the recording is or a PDF of the slides is circulated. We have geographical groups working all over the world, so that's a great place to start looking for someone who is most local to you, wherever you're coming from. But we also have groups that are arranged around topic areas. So our Cochrane Review groups or thematic groups that are topic-oriented groups. We also have some evidence synthesis units that are geographically oriented as well, that are producing reviews for us also. So never a bad idea to start there, looking at our list of groups and seeing if there is a relevant topic area or a geographic group that is close to you that could advise you on forming an author team, potentially providing co-authors or suggesting where you might find some, and so on. So once you have, you've defined your research question or defined kind of the criteria for your review update, how do you prepare your proposal for us to evaluate your proposal for a new reviewer update? You will need to submit this on our editorial manager site. That is also linked there. If you don't have one, you'll need to have a Cochrane account to be able to log in there. So you'll set one up via the link that's on that page. We have in our knowledge base, we have 2 the full forms and questions that you'll be asked in editorial manager available, and I've linked both of them there for you. There are questions that go over a lot of what I've talked about in terms of the considerations for new reviews or updates. You'll need to define your review PICO. You'll put in the details of your author team and the expertise that each person brings. You'll need to agree with Cochrane policies and review, ensuring that your team meets the conflict of interest policy, among others. There's questions about whether your review topic will have an impact in terms of health equity worldwide, and also there's room for you to provide additional context for the topic of your review, or why the context around why a review update is relevant at this time. So we do recommend kind of looking at the forms ahead of time, preparing your responses, and then submitting everything when you are ready. After you submit your proposal, there's a standard process that all proposals go through for evaluation. So first, our proposal manager, who is based within the the central editorial service, will check through your proposal for completeness, making sure that you filled in everything, all the information that we need, and input it correctly. After it's confirmed that your proposal is completed, we will pass the proposal along to Cochrane's commissioning editor for review based on their knowledge of priority research topics in Cochrane, as well as what kind of most used reviews on the Cochrane Library. Some proposals may be accepted straight away or rejected directly at this stage. But if your proposal is recommended for additional evaluation, an information specialist from our central executive team will check, for example, if a proposed review overlaps with any previous Cochrane protocols or reviews for new reviews, or if there are any potentially relevant new studies for inclusion in a review if you're proposing a review update. And the proposal will also then be sent to relevant topic experts from the Cochrane community. So these are editors with expert knowledge in a variety of topics, either based in Cochrane groups or independent across kind of our global community. And they'll evaluate your topic and your proposal based on their area of clinical expertise, considering the expertise as well of the author team that you are proposing, and the other context you provide in your proposal. Then based on these evaluations, a decision is made for the proposal, and this is communicated with authors. And we aim to provide a decision for all proposals within roughly 4 weeks of submission, though this timeline can change around holiday season or regarding the availability of these topic experts in various Cochrane groups. Assuming that your proposal is accepted for a new review or update, after acceptance, the support team of which I'm a part will create the new protocol file for you or activate your previous review for update in RevMan. So this is just a little picture of the dashboard in RevMan and where you'll be working to produce your protocol or review. We'll then get in touch with you to provide you with the link to access your review in RevMan and an invitation to submit. It is important to note here that acceptance of a proposal does not guarantee acceptance of your subsequent protocol, review, or update for publication on the library. All of these, when they're submitted, will undergo an independent editorial process that will be undertaken for all protocols and reviews that are submitted to the Central Editorial Service. And then finally, I did want to note, we do know that our reviews are quite complex to plan and conduct, but there is a lot of support that's available to Cochrane authors as you're undertaking your review. So there's several links that I've included here, and I'll just briefly talk about them. On Cochrane.org, there's a whole section of the website and many pages that are under the kind of for authors heading on the top. We have detailed information there about all steps of producing a review and the processes that you'll need to go through, as well as links out to all of the resources relevant to each part of the process. As I mentioned already, as a registered Cochrane author, you receive free access to our 13-module Cochrane Interactive Learning course that includes really detailed instruction on how to go about completing each step of an intervention review. The Cochrane Handbook is available on our website and has lots and lots of very detailed information for conducting your review. Should your team need it and you're not able to include an information specialist on your review team, we do have a team within the Central Executive Team, the Central Study Identification Service, with some information specialists that may be able to assist you with developing your search strategy, or carrying out a search or an update search. So if you need that additional support, please do reach out to the Cochrane support team and we can connect you with that team. For use of RevMan, we have a big knowledge base kind of user's manual on teaching you how to do different steps of the review process in RevMan, and for your submission, etc. In Editorial Manager, we have a knowledge base for that as well. And then should you not find help for your question in those resources, then you can always contact my team, the Cochrane support team, with any questions that you have. And with that kind of very quick whistle-stop tour of the process for registering reviews, now I will turn it over to you and see if you have any questions.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Really appreciate it, and such an informative presentation. I've been in Cochrane for a few years now, but a lot of the stuff I was reminded of things that I've forgotten about. So really helpful. So yeah, I'm going to open it up to everybody for questions. I see we've got a question in the chat. While others think, if you've got questions, this is from Dakalo. Hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. So has Cochrane evaluated whether its free training actually leads to successful review completion rates? In other words, is there data showing that the training translates into capacity, not just enrollment? Wow, a challenging question.
That's a really good question. Thank you for that. And I will have to say that I don't know. I am not sure if we've done kind of a deeper evaluation of the interactive learning course in that way. I'm just thinking about all of the data sources and how we might connect kind of usage and passage of the modules to review. I think it would be possible to do this, but that's definitely a bit of a research project that I certainly will propose to our learning team. But I can't actually answer that question right now. But thank you for bringing that up. I think it's a good point. We have in last year I was not involved, but our learning team did do kind of a review and update of all of the modules of Cochrane Interactive Learning, in transitioning them over to kind of be hosted on a new platform, and to make sure that the content of those modules was up to date and in line with current Cochrane methods, as they had been initially launched, I think, in 2017. So it had been quite a while, and so they have been recently updated. But yeah, in terms of your question, I think that's a really interesting research, kind of internal research topic that we could undertake.
Rachel, as you were talking, sort of two questions that I first was, we get a lot of requests. People have an idea for a review, and they kind of want to brainstorm it or find out whether this might be possible as a Cochrane review. So I was wondering from your side, essentially, if people can get in touch and speak to someone, correspond by email, or just get some initial feedback before putting in a kind of formal application or submission of a proposal. That was my first question. And then my second was around the updates. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think previously, or if it's still the case, that sort of when you commit to a Cochrane review, it used to be at least that, you would probably not be, well, maybe a bit obligated, that that you would need to do an update, or at least think about an update of that review at some point. I'm wondering if that is still the case, or if it's sort of very much optional to do an update. Sorry, two questions at once.
Yeah, no, those are great questions. Yeah, so if you have kind of an initial idea of a review topic, but that you think would be relevant, but you're not sure, we do have people that send those through to the support team, and then we kind of consult internally with the various teams that are looking at those to advise on, you know, kind of what people think and what level of priority that topic might take. So that definitely people can always contact the support team, which is the email's on the screen. It's also support@cochrane.org if you have that question. We also, regarding updates, so yes, essentially when you are signing on for your topic, you're kind of committing to producing the protocol and the review initially, and then should there be changes in the kind of the research or the literature for that topic, you are, we can't force anyone, of course, to do an update, but you are kind of signed up as the responsible party for that topic. So should there be, particularly for really high profile or high priority reviews, or those, for example, if we do get contacted centrally from guideline organizations like the WHO, when there are relevant topics that they need to produce guidelines for, and when that happens, our commissioning editor will look first to the author team of the current review on the library that needs to be updated, and reach out and say, hey, we, you know, for XYZ reason, we need an update produced for this review, and that the kind of the standing author team for that will be contacted first to see if they're available. You know, it does happen occasionally that people have moved on in their careers and are working on something else and are not able to, in which case then we ask for permission kind of to hand that topic off to a different author team if it's something that is a really high priority for update. But yes, I mean, if you continue to be working and interested in the field of that topic, kind of producing updates would be your job throughout.
Thanks, Rachel. Very helpful.
I do see a question, yeah, in the chat about if it's free to join Cochrane. Yes, it's free. You signing up for a Cochrane account is free. There's lots of ways you can get involved with Cochrane beyond producing a review. So I will just briefly mention, that's not the topic of this webinar, but we do have, I mentioned already, our Cochrane Crowd. So this is our crowdsourcing platform that we have people from all over the world contributing. There's a little bit of training on the site, and then you can help with classifying records in our kind of our database of RCTs. And so this involves, well, there's various tasks you can do on the crowd platform, but the most common is to review bibliographic records that come up and just help us define and mark them as whether they're a randomized controlled trial or not in terms of the study design. And then occasionally there will be other kind of challenges and tasks on crowd that you can contribute to. And with that, you, with those contributions, you earn membership points with Cochrane, and if you kind of reach a certain level of contribution, you can become a Cochrane member as well. In addition, there, you know, we have volunteer translators from around the world that are translating plain language summaries and abstracts for publication on the library. We have a lot, as I mentioned, our Cochrane group. So perhaps, Sarah, you can talk more about ways people could get involved with Cochrane South Africa, but geographic groups around the world are looking for volunteers to contribute to the activities that they are carrying out. So lots of ways to get involved with Cochrane for free. It's also free to propose a review topic. So everything I mentioned today, that's completely free for you to do. And you'll receive kind of access to all those resources I mentioned if your proposal is accepted and you're kind of registered as an author with Cochrane.
Thanks, Rachel. And yeah, also to reiterate, those of you that know us and Cochrane South Africa, we specifically based at the South African Medical Research Council, and we're currently updating our website at the moment, but you, in the meantime, can also go and look on our website where we share a lot of kind of the things that we do. And so, yeah, we're really always looking for people to be involved and to connect. So please do get in touch with us. And yeah, if you want to be involved with reviews we may be working on, the training we do, or want to take part in, yeah, we're always looking for people to get involved. Any other questions or comments here?
Always crystal clear, perhaps.
All crystal clear. Absolutely. No, it's really informative. And I think what's really lovely also is to have this as a resource. Your slides, Rachel, I think you said you're happy for us to share them. I think having those resources, so then on hand, if one wants to do a review or thinking about it, this will become one's go-to first place. So yeah, really, really helpful. And hopefully we will see after this webinar interest and people keen to get involved and potentially do a Cochrane review. So yeah,
I did.
Rachel.
I popped in the chat just in case you hadn't noted it down, the support team email address. We do respond to every email that we get. So do if you have any questions about what I presented that come up later and you didn't have a chance to ask them in this chat or after the presentation, please do reach out to us. And thank you so much, Sarah, for inviting me to present.
Absolutely. Thank you for presenting first thing in the morning. Rachel's in Chile, so first thing whereas I think for a lot of us it's late in the day. So yeah, thanks so much. And if, as Rachel said, just do get in touch if you have any questions, further questions afterwards for her. And as I said, in Cochrane, South Africa, please do feel free to get in touch with us too. Okay, well, if there are no further comments or questions, I think we'll say goodbye and see you all at our next, probably this is our last webinar for the year. So probably we'll see you all again in 2026. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you.
Bye.